Good afternoon. So yesterday I was in my car, and usually in the car I try to listen to a podcast or a class, not waste too much time. I do spend time in the car. But I happened to be listening to the radio. And on the radio, they were talking about this new study that basically says that people don't leave negative ratings anymore. And the reason they said is because, take for example an Uber driver. Almost always people give the Uber driver a 5 rating. And the reason they say is because people don't want to hurt the guy's livelihood. It's so personal to him. This is what she or he does for a living. They don't want to hurt them. So even if it wasn't a 5 rating, they'll give them a 5 rating not to hurt them. People are more comfortable maybe to write a negative rating about a company where they don't feel that it's personal and they're not impacting the person directly. And it's ironic because they were finding it to be a negative, that you can get true ratings about a person. I found it to be a great positive. Because in this week's Torah portion, we read about Moses and Aaron and Miriam. The way Moses' brother and sister Aaron and Miriam are speaking negatively against him. And God comes to them and says, why do you speak this way about my servant, about Moses? And Rashi right away asks, why doesn't he just say about my servant Moses? Why does he add the word again, about my servant, about Moses? And what Rashi says is that the Torah is telling us that even if he was just my servant and he wasn't the great Moses, you shouldn't speak bad about him. And even if it was Moses, your brother, but he wasn't a servant, you should never speak bad about a person, not just because they're a great leader, not just because they're a remarkable person, but because you should never speak negative. And the reason is because you harm someone. And there's a famous story with the great Chafetz Chaim, who together with another rabbi, they were guests in the inn. And after they stayed the evening in the inn, the next day the innkeeper comes in and tells them, how was it? And the Chafetz Chaim says everything was amazing, top notch. And then the Chafetz Chaim turns to the other guy and says, tell me, how was it? And the guy says, everything was great, but the soup could have had more salt in it. And after he leaves, the Chafetz Chaim turns to this other rabbi astonishingly. He said, what do you do? He says, come with me. And he takes him into the kitchen, and he shows him the way the innkeeper is now scolding the chef. Why was there not enough salt in the soup? He says, you could have cost this guy his livelihood. Why would you do that? And the message is a profound one. That's what the Torah tells us about Moses and Aaron. He's telling the brother and sister, Aaron and Miriam, listen, you shouldn't not speak negative because it's Moses, the greatest leader. You shouldn't speak negative because it's anyone, because negativity has no place. And that's why when I heard this study yesterday, and we were learning this Torah portion this week, it made me think twice, the story of the Chafetz Chaim. They might see it as a negative. Hey, listen, this guy is no one wants to leave negative ratings. How are we going to know the truth about someone? But the truth is, when you finish and you get out of your Uber, and it pops up on your screen and says, leave a rating, what does it cost you? You don't think twice. So if you weren't careful, you could hurt someone and say, hey, you know what, the music wasn't exactly, this wasn't perfect. You'll give them a 4 rating or a 3 rating. For you, it was insignificant. But to them, it's their livelihood, it's their life. And that's how you have to see every encounter. And every time you meet someone, remember that even if it's not personal to you, it's personal to someone else. And when you speak negative or you leave a negative rating, just before you do that, think about the impact you're having on someone. And I'm not saying that there should never be a time when there's a negative rating. You, of course, have to protect other people. And if there's someone that's unsafe, etc., there is no choice. But at least think about it and consider the impact it's going to have on the person you're giving the rating. And that's what Moses and Aaron, that's what Aaron and Miriam got the message from God. Love, why do you speak this way against my servant, against Moses? It's insignificant and irrelevant if he's Moses, the greatest leader, or he's just a regular person. Speak positive. God bless you.